On a gray Seattle morning, the kind that hangs heavy in the air, a little girl stood barefoot on the cold sidewalk outside a faded gas station. Her hands, wrapped in what looked like an old t-shirt, carefully wiped the hood of a gleaming black Bentley Continental GT, its paint polished to a mirror shine. She wasn't supposed to be there. No uniform, no adult in sight, just a child treating a luxury car like something sacred. Inside the Bentley, behind tinted glass, Henry Caldwell watched in silence. He looked like everything success was supposed to be. Sharp suit, expensive watch, a face graced countless business magazines. He had just walked out of a multi-million-dollar investor meeting, a deal most would toast with champagne. But Henry felt nothing. Not since the accident, since he lost everything that ever truly mattered. His finger hovered over the horn, ready to scare her off. This wasn't some toy for a child to play with. But then, he froze. The girl was softly singing. It was faint, barely a whisper over the distant rumble of highway traffic. A melody pulled from the shadows of memory, one he hadn't heard in years. A children's song. The song. The one his daughter used to sing with her mother on quiet Sunday mornings, when he pretended to sleep, just to hear them laughing in the kitchen. His chest tightened. No, it couldn't be. That voice, that melody. It was impossible. He stepped out of the car, the sharp click of the door echoing across the concrete. His footsteps made the girl flinch, but she didn't run. She simply stopped singing and looked up at him, not with fear, just a cautious stillness, like someone who'd learned the world could turn dangerous without warning. "Where did you learn that song?" he asked. His voice came out more broken than he expected. She stared at him with wide, solemn eyes so familiar it made his stomach drop. Her cheeks were dusty, a smudge of oil on her forehead. "My mom used to sing it," she said quietly, "before she left." Henry staggered. The world seemed to tilt. "What's your mother's name?" The girl hesitated, glanced toward the gas station, then met his gaze again. "Abigail. Abigail Moore." The name hit him like a freight train. Abigail Moore. The same name carved into the headstone where he buried his wife. But their daughter had died with her. That's what they told him. That's what he believed for 7 long, hollow years. The girl resumed her song, eyes closed, voice trembling now. There was pain in it, a strange, aching truth that stirred something in Henry's chest he thought had died. He dropped to his knees. Tears came, sudden and silent. "Mister, are you okay?" He looked up, vision blurred. But the question he needed to ask, the one that haunted him, remained trapped in his throat. Who was this girl? Really? And why did every part of him scream that she wasn't a stranger? "What is it? Why did you cry when I sang that song?" Henry's throat tightened. He looked at the girl across from him, this child named Lily who had unknowingly cracked open a sealed-off part of his soul. But how could he answer her? How could he explain that her voice sounded like the ghost of someone he had buried? Twice? He swallowed hard, heart hammering, and said nothing. Then his phone buzzed. A message from Gerald. "Henry, I found something." The child brought to the Tacoma shelter had no ID, only a note and a drawing. She was registered as Lily Moore, but the woman who dropped her off used a false name. "We're working to ID her. Also, there are inconsistencies in Abigail's autopsy. I'm sending the documents to your email now." Henry's blood ran cold. His fingers went numb. The message felt like a blade slipping beneath his skin. Lily sat across from him, sipping from a paper juice cup, legs swinging slightly off the diner bench. She looked at him with calm curiosity. "You look really pale, mister." He forced a breath. "Just a little dizzy. It'll pass." "You seem sad all the time," she added. "Even when you smile." The words hit like a stone to the ribs. "So do you," he replied softly. She looked down, cheeks flushed. "Sometimes I miss someone I don't remember." Silence followed, thick and fragile. Then the mood shifted. Out the wide glass windows of the diner, a black SUV rolled into the far end of the gas station. Subtle, unmarked. But Henry noticed. 2 men got out. One was on the phone, the other scanning the area with eyes that didn't belong to ordinary travelers. Henry's instincts, sharpened by years in rooms where smiles masked knives, snapped to attention. "Lily, finish your juice," he said, voice calm but firm. "We're leaving in 5 minutes." "Okay," she nodded, unaware of the urgency. He tossed cash on the table, scooped up the keys, and reached for her hand. "Change of plans. We're heading to the car now." Lily followed, quiet, but when they stepped into the open, she asked in a whisper, "Are we running away?" "Not yet," he said, "but maybe soon." As he buckled her into the passenger seat of the Bentley, his hands trembled. One of the men had broken away from the SUV and was walking toward them with purpose. Henry slid into the driver's seat, started the engine, and peeled out before the man could get close enough to see their faces. The road stretched ahead, endless and uncertain. "Who were those men?" Lily asked, watching the receding gas station in the side mirror. "I don't know," Henry replied, "but I will." As they sped down I-5, his phone chimed again. New emails from Gerald. He opened them one by one. Scanned documents filled the screen. Abigail's death certificate, the autopsy report, side-by-side comparisons, forged signatures, mismatched records. This wasn't just incompetence. It was a cover-up. Henry's jaw clenched. If Lily was who he feared she was, if she was Chloe, then someone had gone to extraordinary lengths to erase her, to keep her hidden. But why? He turned to the girl beside him. "Lily, do you have Miriam's phone number?" She shook her head. "Number, but I know where she lives. Near a church, the one with the bell that rings 3 times at noon." Henry opened his GPS, pulled up every church in the South Tacoma area with a working bell tower, and started narrowing the search. As he drove, he asked, "Are you afraid of anyone?" Lily didn't answer at first. Then, almost inaudibly, she said, "Sometimes Miriam would talk to someone on the phone. She'd cry afterward." Henry's grip tightened on the wheel. Someone was still involved. Someone pulling strings in the dark. He looked over at her, this small, quiet girl cradled in the oversized seat of his car. If someone was trying to silence the truth, it meant that truth was explosive. He wouldn't let them win. As Tacoma's skyline loomed, gray, industrial, and heavy with secrets, he followed every breadcrumb Lily gave him. Then as the clock struck noon, a sound echoed through the neighborhood. 3 slow chimes. Lily sat up. "That's the one," she said, pointing to a weathered house nestled beside the church. It looked forgotten. Overgrown yard, paint peeling like old skin, a place ghosts would feel at home. "Wait here," Henry said, stepping out. "Are you going to yell at her?" Lily asked. He paused. "Number, I just want the truth." Each step toward the porch felt like descending into a memory he hadn't prepared to face. He knocked. The door opened slowly. Miriam. She was older now, thinner, her eyes sunken from years of guilt and sleepless nights. In her hands was a familiar envelope, the one from the shelter. "Henry Caldwell," she whispered. "I knew this day would come. Is she my daughter?" The question hit like a blade. Miriam stepped aside. "Please, come in." He stayed standing while she sank into a worn armchair, clutching the envelope like a lifeline. "I was there," she began, "the night they brought your wife in. Your daughter was alive, shaken, but alive. Then a man arrived, said he was a relative, had documents, said you'd approve custody." Henry's heart stopped. I would never." "I know," she said, eyes welling. "I realized later the papers were forged, but by then, she was gone. Taken." She opened the envelope and pulled out a single, grainy photo. Hospital security footage. A man in a black cap and sunglasses holding a child. Face half hidden. But Henry knew that profile. That stance. That jawline. James Whitaker. His former business partner. The same man he exposed for embezzlement. The man whose career he destroyed. "He took her," Henry said, voice hoarse. "And when he couldn't use her to get what he wanted, he threw her away." Miriam nodded, tears streaking down her face. "I found her again 2 years ago. At the shelter. Dirty. Scared. Holding the same drawing from the hospital." "Why didn't you go to the police?" "I was afraid," she said, voice cracking. "Afraid if I said something, she'd vanish again. I did everything I could, but it wasn't enough." Henry turned away, heart pounding. His world had just shifted under his feet. Someone had stolen his child, lied about her death, hidden her for years, and now that someone was hunting them again. The truth was uglier than Henry had feared. Chloe, now Lily, had been a pawn in a ruthless game played by powerful men with no conscience, and now she was sitting in a car, trusting him to tell her how to face a world that had already betrayed her. Then came the screech of tires outside. Henry rushed to the window. A black SUV had whipped into the street, fishtailing before slamming to a stop. 3 men jumped out. One of them, James Whitaker. "Take her out the back, now!" Henry shouted to Miriam. She didn't ask questions. She grabbed Lily and slipped out the rear door. Henry stepped onto the porch alone, fury boiling beneath his skin. James strolled forward with that same smug smile he used to wear in boardrooms, back when betrayal wore a designer suit. "Looking for your daughter, Henry?" he sneered. "You've got 10 seconds to give me one reason not to put you in the ground," Henry growled. James only laughed. "Because I'm not done with you yet." 2 of his men lunged forward. The first punch came fast, splitting Henry's lip. The second sent him to his knees. He didn't cry out. The pain was nothing compared to the years of grief he'd carried. James crouched beside him, whispering low. "You thought you could destroy me and walk away clean, but now I've destroyed you." Henry spat blood, meeting his enemy's gaze. "You kidnapped a child just to settle a score. That's not vengeance. That's cowardice." James only smiled. "There's no justice, Henry. Just winners and survivors." The men dragged Henry toward the SUV. He fought, but his strength was draining fast. The Bentley, his car, his escape, was only yards away. But Lily? Where was Lily? And then he heard it. A scream. Thin, terrified. "Daddy!" The word tore through him like fire. He turned, blood clouding his vision. Lily was sprinting along the side of the house, hair wild, eyes wide with terror. Behind her, one of James's thugs closed in fast. Henry surged to his feet. James kicked him hard in the ribs, sending him down again. "It's over!" he hissed. But Henry wasn't done. He rolled, kicked one thug in the leg, then grabbed a rock from the ground and hurled it into the other's face. He staggered forward, arms outstretched just in time for Lily to crash into his chest, sobbing. "He was going to take me!" she cried. Henry held her tight, using his battered body to shield her. He couldn't breathe, could barely stand, but he wouldn't let go. And then, the cold click of metal at the back of his head. James. Game over. But the night had one last twist. A siren wailed. Red and blue lights spilled across the street. Somewhere, a neighbor had called the police. James's men panicked. One fled. Another tried to duck into the shadows. But James stood frozen, gun still raised, expression unreadable. "This isn't over," he whispered. Then he dropped the gun. Officers swarmed them. James was cuffed without ceremony. Henry was helped to his feet, barely able to stand. Lily was wrapped in a blanket and led to a separate car. Standard procedure, they said. They had to verify the relationship. And just like that, Chloe was taken from him again. At the hospital, Henry lay under flickering fluorescent lights, ribs bruised, heart gutted. A nurse entered carrying a sealed envelope. "This came for you, from someone named Gerald." He opened it with shaking hands. "DNA test result, probability of paternity, 99.999%. The tears came fast, but they didn't bring comfort. The truth was undeniable now. She was his daughter, and still he had failed her. 2 days passed. No word, no visits, just silence. On the 3rd day, the door finally opened. Lily stood there, clutching a blue notebook to her chest. Beside her was a social worker named Claire, who had the eyes of someone who had seen far too much. "You have 10 minutes, she said gently. "No physical contact, no promises. Custody is still under judicial review." Henry didn't argue. He just nodded. Lily stepped closer, staring at the bandages on his face. She stopped by his bedside. "Hi," she whispered. He smiled. It hurt. "Hi, Lily. Feeling better?" "A little." She looked down at her shoes. "Every time I see you, I feel a little more okay." There was so much silence between them, and yet everything had already been said. They asked if I wanted to go live somewhere else, she murmured. Henry held his breath. And what did you say? She looked up at him, eyes brimming not with fear, but quiet courage. I said I wanted to stay with you. It was like being hugged straight to the soul. Lily, he said softly, voice cracking. They're right. I didn't raise you. I wasn't there when I should have been. But if you let me, I want to learn. I want to be your dad now. She bit her lip, then held out the notebook. I drew you. Want to see? He opened it with trembling hands. The first drawing was of them, hand in hand at a park, a little dog beside them. They'd never talked about dogs, but there it was, drawn in crayon, full of hope. I was never good at drawing, he said. You're good at hugging, she replied. Silence returned, but this time it was warm, like something broken, slowly mending. Claire checked her watch but didn't speak. She could see what was unfolding. Lily, Henry said, would you let me try, even if I mess up sometimes? She smiled shyly. I think you're already trying. That's more than I had before. Henry clutched the notebook to his chest like it was made of gold, because in that moment, it was. Claire stepped forward. Time's up, Lily. She nodded and turned to go, but at the door she looked back. When we get a house, can we get a dog? Henry laughed, really laughed, for the first time in months. I promise, we'll figure it out, together. She walked out, and this time, even though he was alone, he wasn't empty, because for the first time in years, Henry Caldwell had something no one could take from him again. Hope. Henry Motti was finally ready to fight, but he didn't know that the battle wasn't over, not even close. Deep within the halls of justice, powerful forces were already at work trying to tear him and Lily apart. The county courtroom was cold, almost surgical. Wood-paneled walls gave a false sense of tradition, but nothing could warm the air or settle the tension that crackled like static. High above them, the judge, an older woman with silver gray hair and eyes carved from stone, presided like a god deciding who deserved redemption and who didn't. Henry sat in a charcoal gray suit, bruises still visible beneath the collar, but his posture unbroken. Beside him was his attorney, a family law specialist with a cutthroat reputation. Across the aisle, a child services attorney flipped through her files like a coroner reviewing a cause of death, clinical, emotionless. Lily wasn't there. That was part of the plan, to shield her from further trauma. But her future was being decided in that room, every word carved into the record like fate in stone. Mr. Cordwell, the judge began, voice calm but unforgiving, the department has raised concerns about your emotional stability, your recent altercation with the alleged kidnappers, and the fact that Lily lived for 2 years under someone else's care. What do you say to that? Henry rose slowly. Your Honor, I've made more mistakes than I care to count. When I lost my wife, I lost the will to live. And when they told me Lily had died, I accepted it, like punishment I deserved. He looked around the courtroom, his voice steadying. But life gave me something I didn't expect. A second chance. Not to fix the past, but to show up now. Lily doesn't need a perfect man. She needs someone who stays. And that's what I intend to do every day. The judge didn't respond immediately, but her eyes flickered, just for a moment. And Mr. Whitaker, she asked, we know he orchestrated Lily's abduction. He was your former business partner. Why didn't you suspect him? Because grief blinds you, Henry said quietly. And trust in the wrong people, it can cost everything. The prosecutor objected, citing potential risk to Lily's emotional stability. But Henry's attorney countered. Your Honor, we submit a statement from Dr. Susan Reinhardt, a licensed child psychologist who evaluated Lily over the past 48 hours. The letter was read aloud. Dr. Reinhardt described the bond between Lily and Henry as spontaneous, strong, and healing. She warned that separating them now could re-traumatize the child, possibly inflicting lasting psychological harm. The courtroom went still, then the back doors creaked open. Miriam stepped in. The woman who had once hidden Lily now walked with something new in her gaze. Peace. She approached the bench and requested to speak. The judge hesitated, then nodded. I lived with Lily for 2 years, Miriam said, voice clear. I watched her laugh, cry, grow. But she never called anyone dad, not once, until she met Henry. I made mistakes, but I saw her find something in him I couldn't give her. A home, a choice. And sometimes we have to respect a child's choice, because they see what we adults ignore. The judge inhaled, then exhaled slowly. A decision will be rendered in 48 hours. Court is adjourned. Outside in the courthouse courtyard, Henry found Lily crouched on the ground with a box of crayons, drawing quietly on the pavement. She looked up. Is it going to be okay? He knelt beside her, ignoring the ache in his ribs. We're already okay. Now we're just waiting for the paperwork to catch up. She smiled and handed him her latest drawing. Two people in a small house, a dog at their feet. Above the roof, one word in big, uneven letters: family. But Henry had no idea James Whitaker wasn't finished. That night he couldn't sleep. His mind ran in loops despite the coming court decision. Something in his gut twisted, an old instinct honed in boardrooms full of sharks and backrooms full of liars. James was free, released on a technicality, procedural error during his arrest. He claimed self-defense, twisted the facts, exploited every loophole, and walked. Now the man who had stolen Henry's daughter was back in the world. Henry lay awake in the guest room of Miriam's house. Lily slept soundly in the room down the hall, her notebook clutched to her chest. The court had declared the house neutral ground during the custody process, but tonight, nothing felt neutral. At 2:04 a.m., Henry heard it, a soft metallic click downstairs. His body froze, then tensed. Barefoot, he crept down the stairs, gripping an old iron rod from the fireplace. The back window was ajar, open from the outside. He stepped into the living room. Nothing, just silence. Then, movement behind him. He spun, weapon raised, until a voice cut through the dark. If you hit me, you won't hear what I came to say. James Whitaker stood there, alone. No gun, no goons, just him, wearing a look Henry had never seen before. Tired, cracked, almost human. What do you want? Henry's voice was gravel, still holding the rod tight. I came to finish what I started, James said, breath hitching. But not the way you think. Henry didn't reply. He waited. She's your daughter, James said. I know that now. When I took her, I wanted to break you, but instead I ended up holding this little girl in my arms. She wasn't leverage. She was a mirror. Henry lowered the rod slightly. Then why? James looked away. Because you destroyed me, took my company, my name. I was nothing but scandal and shame. I wanted you to feel what I felt. He paused. But she called me something. The quiet man. Said I didn't talk much. Just drove her around. Turned on cartoons. She didn't even know I was hurting her. She calmed me, and that broke me. Henry stepped forward. Why are you telling me this now? James hesitated. Because someone's going to try and stop you tomorrow. Not just me. People in the system. Judges, prosecutors, people who knew this cover-up went deeper. If the truth gets out, they fall. Henry's blood chilled. How do you know? James laughed bitterly. Because I was part of it, until yesterday. Henry stared at him, disbelief rippling through every nerve. And why warn me? James looked at the window, toward the horizon. I don't know. Maybe because she made me see something I thought I'd lost. Maybe because I know I'm already done. But you still have a shot. And then without another word, James turned and disappeared into the night. Henry didn't chase him. He stood there, heart pounding, mind racing. Because tomorrow the real war would begin. And this time, the battlefield wasn't just a courtroom. It was the system itself. For the first time in my life, James said, his voice almost trembling, I want to do something right, even if it's too late. He placed a small USB drive on the table. It's all there. Recordings, emails, documents, proof. Enough to secure full custody, to clear your daughter's name, and to bring down the ones who buried the truth. After this, I just want to disappear. Henry stood frozen. The air between them buzzed with tension. But something in James had changed. His eyes no longer burned with hatred. As he turned to leave, James paused at the door. If you report me, I'll understand. But if you don't, maybe your daughter will grow up in a world with a little less darkness. And just like that, he vanished into the night. Henry stared at the flash drive as if it held not just evidence, but redemption. Upstairs, Lily slept soundly, her small frame curled around a notebook. She had no idea her world was about to shift again, but Henry knew exactly what he had to do now. It was time to fight, not as a businessman, not as a victim, but as a father. The next morning, the courtroom overflowed. Journalists, child advocacy groups, onlookers. The nation's eyes were locked on the story of Henry Caldwell, the man who had found the daughter the world had declared dead, now challenging a corrupted system. Henry stood tall, no longer hiding. Beside him sat Lily, wearing a pale blue dress and coloring quietly in her lap. Her hair had been brushed neatly by Miriam that morning, and there was peace in her gaze, a peace born of safety. The judge presiding over the case was new, appointed after allegations of bias in the previous trial. He was known for his integrity, sharp-eyed and unshakable. Henry held the flash drive that James had left him. Copies had already been submitted to the attorneys, the court, and the press. Mr. Caldwell, the judge asked, would you like to make a final statement before this court renders its decision? Henry rose, his voice was steady. Your Honor, this case was never just about custody. It's about what we do when life gives us a second chance. I lost everything once, my wife, my daughter, and myself. But when I found her again, I realized not every story ends in tragedy. Some just need someone brave enough to rewrite them. He turned to Lily. I'm not asking for permission to be her father. I'm choosing to be one, because she chose me first, and that's all that matters. The courtroom held its breath. The prosecutor stood. Her tone had changed, softer now. Your Honor, in light of the evidence submitted, including recordings implicating members of the judicial system, psychological reports, and DNA confirmation, the state no longer opposes full custody being awarded to Mr. Caldwell. We also request the legal restoration of the child's original name. The judge reviewed the documents, nodded, and spoke with finality. This court hereby recognizes that Lily Moore, born Chloe Caldwell, is the biological and legal daughter of Henry Caldwell. Full custody is granted. This case is closed. The room erupted with murmurs and flashing cameras, but Henry didn't hear any of it. All that mattered was the sound of the chair beside him scraping back as Lily jumped into his arms and held on tight. Daddy, she whispered, can we go home now? Tears ran freely down his face. Yes, sweetheart. We're going home. Outside, Miriam waited for them. Her smile carried both joy and a quiet sorrow. She had decided to move to a small town, to start over, but she would always be a part of Chloe's life. Before leaving, she knelt down and handed the girl a small box. Your mom gave this to me years ago. She wanted you to have it someday. Inside was a gold bracelet, simple and engraved by hand. Chloe. The girl held it for a moment, then slipped it onto her wrist. Can I still be Lily too? She asked. Henry knelt down, his voice soft. You can be anything you want. Lily, Chloe, you're my miracle. Days later, they were home. A new house, built just for the two of them. In the backyard, a golden retriever puppy chased toys through the grass, its collar reading Sewell, Lily's idea. On the porch, Henry wrote a letter addressed to Abigail. Today she called me Daddy with ice cream on her lips and dirt on her feet. And for a moment I heard your laugh in the wind. I promise I'll protect her with every bit of strength I have left. Not because I'm strong, but because she is, and because you taught me what love really means. He folded the letter and placed it in the bracelet box, then buried it beneath a young tree they'd planted in the yard. In the golden light of evening, as the puppy barked and Chloe ran free through the grass, Henry watched her. No longer a man haunted by loss, but a father made whole, and this time it was forever. Don't go just yet. Tap the next story on your screen. Subscribe. Share this with someone who believes in second chances. I'll see you there.